Students, here is Usama Tahir and you're watching Learn English with Usama Tahir. Students, today we are going to talk about three important topics, which is like the extended version of second language learning. We are going to talk about the phases of second language learning, the barriers, the hurdles we face, everything, and different in the point of view, difference in the point of view of teaching second language learning. So we are going to talk about focus on the learner, transfer errors, and interlanguage. Yes, focus on the learner. Students, in the past there was so much focus on the teachers, on the textbooks, on the all other things except students and students behavior and learners condition and psychology. Everything was ignored, and even errors were considered to be negative and were condemned and punished and all. But nobody talked about that students' errors are somewhat logical, they are somewhat systematic, they are somewhat influenced from their first language, or nobody classified them. But in this era, in the present era, students are not so much given importance or the textbook, but teachers are not given so much importance or the textbooks, but students or the learners are given importance because they want to learn, they have to learn. So their errors were not considered bad now or negative, but they were considered positive and as a sign of their progress, that they are making progress in the second language acquisition. That's why they are making errors. So students classified those errors and understand that these errors are influenced by their first language or maybe overgeneralization. For example, if a student say women's go to school, so it means he is making error. Yes, he is, but he just overgeneralized the pattern of ed. So we need to understand the nature of the errors and just focus on the learner is diverted, right? Next we have transfer errors. Students, transfer errors is also known as cross-linguistic influence. When a learner is learning a second language, his second language progress, performance is always, affected by his first language knowledge. He will always compare the second language with his first language, and it will create the trouble or errors in the second language. For example, if a Spanish speaker speak like that, take it from the side interior, it means he want to say take it from the lower side. He just made an error because of taking influence from the Spanish. If an Urdu speaker say वो 17 साल का है and he just directly translated to it, he is 17 year instead of saying 17 years old. So it's an example of transfer error. Or वो teacher है, he is teacher. He is the teacher or he is a teacher is not used. So because in Urdu there is not the or the use of the with other things like there is no distinction about like that. So errors that are influenced by the second language, by the first language you have, is the transfer errors. So there are two type of errors, there are two type of transfer errors, positive transfer and the negative transfer. Positive transfer means two languages have similar features, so if a student is following the first language, there is no error in the second language. For example, Arabic and Urdu, there are so much similar patterns, and if a student is learning the second language Arabic, his first language Urdu will help him in understanding the second language and not creating him to make any errors. But if a student is learning English having Urdu as the first language, there will be a lot of trouble for the student because no similar patterns, lots of error will be there, so it will be negative transfer. Next we have interlanguage. Interlanguage means a third type of language that is generated when a learner is learning a second language which is influenced by the first language and also by the overgeneralized patterns of the second language. Students try to take help from the first language as well as overgeneralize the second language features, second language rules and regulations. For example, a Chinese person is learning a second language English. He will make such structures: I go work, because there is no use of to in that language, so they say I go work, influenced by the L1. Do she dance? But in English we need to say does she dance. So first language influence. I goed to school. I goed to school. So first language. So overgeneralized pattern. So ed with every verb which you cannot use. Or he is on the house. This example is from the Urdu. He is on the house. वो घर पर है. But you need to say he is in the house. She is 17 years old, but Urdu speaker would say she is 17-year-old, influence from the first language. So interlanguage is the example of third type of language, which is systematic, which is logical, which is somewhat, you can say it has some logic and hierarchy, but is wrong because of influence from the first language and also the overgeneralized patterns from the second language. But still it exists during the stage of learning. It's like a learning phase. And we call fossilization when progress, another term, it means when the progress of the learner is somewhat stopped and he is making those errors and not progressing much more any further. It means fossilization. Those rules are totally rigid in him or in her, and it's like a phase of fossilization. So these were a few technical things about second language learning, and the summary of this video lecture is just you don't need to take errors as negative. Just classify them, understand the reasons, and eradicate. This is for the teachers. And learners should understand what kind of errors that are made by them, and they should not take influence so much from their L1, and they should not overgeneralize their language features from the L2. So they need to understand and fix those errors. So this